What a delight to be with you all. Thank you to the mayors for your nice introductions and welcomes to the crowd, to Al and Robert, Mr. West. Congratulations to 10 years of this. You must be very proud. I'd like to give a shout out to John and Dave, the board of the Accelerator Knee Tissue, for the work we've been doing together for the last year. You guys are putting in some serious energy into this, and I genuinely appreciate it. My partner in crime, Ilif, I love you, man, and you do great work here. I don't know how much everyone really appreciates all you do, but it's good to have you here and working in this region. And a special thanks to you, Jeff, for making sure this AV is going to work for me. Okay, buddy? Let's say thank you in advance. Let's see how we do here. So you are building what I call your entrepreneurial ecosystem. Think of it simply as the fertile soil and the climate in which you will be able to seed, nurture, and grow new businesses. Your region, not unlike the past 10 years, has set out another big, audacious goal: to attract entrepreneurs to build their businesses here in this region. Because the days of trying to get a corporation to relocate somewhere is almost passé. Corporations are using technology and robotics, and even large factories contain very few people. This work is incredibly important because the economy that we're in is moving to a knowledge worker or the creative class. Our manufacturing base is becoming primarily robotic. Technology and cloud computing allow collaboration, programming, and design engagement by talented people all over the world. So location is irrelevant if you're working on a technology. But the knowledge worker, the individual who either invents or turns an invention into an innovation by bringing it to its profitable adoption, will be the most scarce resource in our community for the next 20 years. These entrepreneurs have shown us already that they can literally transform a town and a city when they put their mind to it. Together, you're creating what I call your front door. Why is this important? Because 75% of all new jobs come from companies that are less than 5 years old. If you are not creating new companies, you're not creating new jobs. Now, there are certainly jobs that come and go as downsizing and rehires occur in large business, but the vast majority of new jobs come from new companies. And it's important that the state, the region, and the nation see you having a coordinated front door for this entrepreneurial activity in your town, so that people know where to get the resources and where they can go to turn their concepts into real businesses. And in doing this, I thought I'd outline what I believe are the 10 critical steps for you to follow. I've lived through these the last 6 years in Nashville. We started with a dream. We've screened in 24 months over 1,500 persons' ideas. We have had guests from 85 of Tennessee's 95 counties and 12 states. We've launched 50 new companies. We've helped them raise almost $20 million of capital, and they now employ almost 400 people in our community. So I know it works, but I also know how hard the work is, and I'd like to share with you some of the steps I think you'll need to take in order to do that. The first is having committed leadership, because change doesn't happen without a champion. Nor will a community reinvent its economy overnight. The leadership requires someone who will visualize results, make it real, and then go execute it, because ideas are relatively cheap. Execution is everything. You have much of that leadership here in this room. I encourage you to support them and to encourage them and to help them. Leadership of this effort will transcend any election cycle. It requires a committed individual or two who will lead by example and execute for years and years to come. Number 2 for you: engage all your stakeholders in the conversation. And what I mean by the conversation is an intentional conversation about what you want to accomplish in your region. Why is this important? Because you can't be a mile wide and an inch deep. You've got to be something special and relevant to your town. You have unique assets that are different than my town's assets, and you have to know how to use those. We all have limited time and resources. Think about what type of entrepreneurial endeavors do you want to be known for? Over the past few years, I have met with dozens of young men and women from your town, most of them under 30, who want to create a business and are looking for the resources they need. How many of them have you personally met with in the last year? How many will you meet with this week? Because if you don't help them, they go somewhere where someone will. Number 3, align your community's vision for success. It's a public-private partnership. By that, it means all the public institutions and organizations represented in this room and all the private enterprises have to agree on what you want to get done. Sometimes, if we look at Washington, that seems like a colossal bad dream. But you guys can make it happen because you're Tennesseans. You don't have to behave that way. And if you choose to, you can do something very meaningful in your town, but it does require the partnership between the public organizations and the private organizations. Number 4, secure your community's support, and that's both time and money. Engage your investor community, engage the businesses, engage all the community partners. Remember that actions are far more important than words, so watch what people do with their feet and their hands, not their mouth. That's what tends to matter in the long run. Number 5, know where the front door is. If you don't know where the front door of entrepreneurship is in your town, how will a guest ever find it? Identify it. I was watching the video and someone spoke about needing signage. I think the most important sign you need is says entrepreneurship begins here in our town, and have it at a physical place. We thought everybody in Nashville knew where to find resources for entrepreneurship. Within a week of our opening, we had 300 guests, all of who told us, gosh, I'm glad you're finally here. Because I was planning to move my company to Austin. I couldn't find the support I needed. That was almost nauseating to hear, okay? I assure you, you have many people in your community not sure where to find their resources, even though you believe them to be plentiful, because from the consumer's point of view, it's not clearly relevant where they find the front door. Number 6, concentrate your efforts on the most important opinion. You'll need to get together and create your own opinions of this. But here I think the most important ingredients for entrepreneurial success for your region. The first, have a process to help people screen their ideas. People simply want the truth, and most of their families will tell them what they want to hear. Gee, Mary or Tom, that sounds like a really nice idea. Really nice ideas don't become businesses. It takes a lot of tough love to get an idea into a business, and someone has to be honest and say, there's no financial model here, I don't see how this makes money, where's the customer, and help them and nurture them to get there. Second, get engagement by seasoned, successful entrepreneurs and business leaders in your town. The best way to learn about business is to be teamed with someone who's successful at it. Third, share what are the business models that work today. Brick and mortar is becoming click and mortar. That's very clear. We have enormously growing new models that are imperative that people embrace cloud computing, that embrace technology, even if they want a small retail center to work, because that's how the world finds out about us today, not through print ads any longer. Third, have access to seed capital, because it takes some seed early investment for things to work. We've created in the past 2 years 2 seed funds in my center. That seed fund has helped 4 veterans launch a company, 16 women launch companies, over dozens of ethnic minorities start businesses. None of those people would have had half a prayer if someone hadn't believed in them early on, and it wasn't a lot of money, 10, 15, 20,000 a piece, to turn their American dream into something real. Specialized training and mentoring so that people know what it means to be a leader. It's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to actually know how to lead a company. You've all worked for someone you wish knew how to lead, because what you're doing could have been so much better. It's especially important for someone who's going to take the hard journey of starting a company to have a business mentor who's led a company before to show them exactly what to do. And finally, the various startup tools they're going to need to get their business off the ground. Number 7. This isn't quite a Letterman top 10, but I hope you are taking a few notes. Identify and support the growth-oriented companies. While being as inclusive as you possibly can, remember that the true drivers of change in your community are going to be the growth-oriented companies. Focus as much as your effort as you can on companies that will actually scale. Because if you get one or two of those, you'll have enough exhaust off of that to carry 50 to 100 little lifestyle businesses. This is probably one of the toughest ones for us in Tennessee because of our conservative roots, and that is address your culture. An ecosystem in entrepreneurship thrives in a culture that encourages people to be bold and entrepreneurial, legitimizes the value of launching a business, celebrates the startup process, and encourages diversity and differing views. You have to understand that entrepreneurship is inherently a contrarian activity. It's the people who said there's got to be a better way that create all the new cool stuff. If you're willing to live with the status quo and you think things are just fine, you have no reason to even believe an entrepreneur would want to be here. So you have to embrace people who challenge the way things are in order to grow and be better. Change is extremely important if we're to thrive and succeed. We've seen that over the evolutionary cycle of every species we know, and it's also important in the evolution of business and economic growth as well. Number 9, connect to the funding pipeline. And I will have good news for you here. The funding pipeline doesn't necessarily have to sit solely in your community. Most of the funding I've been able to get for our early companies come from even outside of Tennessee, because I've been able to show that we create companies that have value. And when you show you can create companies that have value, investors from all parts of the country decide to show up and take a look at what you got. Every week I host a different investment or capital firm from somewhere in the nation in my small office there in Nashville, looking to see the next technology, the next new thing in education, technology, and improvement, the next thing going on in healthcare. And most of these people starting these are 25 to 35-year-olds who don't know what it means yet to fail and believe they can do anything. And they get funding and they get support, and several of them have already tripled and quadrupled the size of their business simply by believing they could do the impossible. Number 10, build connections to the large businesses in your community. The ecosystem doesn't work if the large industry here doesn't support it. You know, from the video, it's very clear the kinds of large business you have. How are they engaged? How are they helping the early stage companies? Do they become the first customers? If the product isn't good enough that nobody at home wants to buy it, why would you ever get on an airplane and try to sell it to someone else? So build the things that are relevant to your market, find your first customers here at home, and then show we believe in enough it to buy it ourselves, and we want you to buy it as well. But believing someone else out there will buy something you won't invest in or buy is just simply a pipe dream. Now let's spend some time to a slightly different direction, because I thought I'd end on a kind of an interesting note about the entrepreneur. Entrepreneur leaders come in all shapes and sizes and flavors. They come from private enterprise, and they come from those who have committed their lives to community service, who boldly lead their communities. I share a picture of you of this bell. The bell hangs in my center in Nashville, and it's a memorial to a fellow named Monroe Carroll, who I got to know before he died of cancer a few years ago. Monroe Carroll believed early on that he could make a business in parking lots. He opened his first one in St. Louis with about 50 spaces and stood out there each day himself to collect the money. By the time he retired, Central Parking had become one of the largest parking enterprises on the planet. He personally endowed and built the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital with his family's fortunes. And he had a motto every single week when they had a success, they rang the bell. And he helped hundreds of young entrepreneurs spin out of his company and start their own companies. And instead of grudgingly being angry that they left, he actually invested in them. So he had investments in hundreds of people who had worked for him before, who spun off and started their own thing. So we have a celebratory way we ring the bell every time one of our companies gets the opportunity to be funded. And we do that because it's something important to know. the idea really isn't worth that much. Sometime over the course of today, before you leave here, if you are listening and not paying too much attention to your iPhone or Crackberry, you will hear 10 good ideas, all of which could be worth $10 to $50 to $100 million. Most of those ideas will evaporate into the dust before the sun sets, because very few people have the guts to go execute an idea. They just talk about them. I walk around with a notepad in my pocket all the time. I am not an idea guy. I'm an execution guy. So I listen to all the cocktail conversations and coffee conversations. And on the weekends, I sit and look at my laundry list and say, what companies do I want to create? And I have my next 3 on the drawing board. That's what all of us are destined to do, is to create something of high value. I tell my friends in Nashville, if you've been there, you kind of know this. Everybody in that town has at least one good country music song they'd like to write, because most of us got there thinking we might do something in music, and one business they want to create. And I know that if you invest the right seeds in your community, you will have all kinds of young people believe they too can have part of the American dream. Because I don't think the American dream is dead at all. I think it lives deep inside all of us. We've just repressed it since we were kids because we've been told so long we couldn't have it because of who we are or what we believe, or the fact that we're not somebody special's child. But every one of you have the privilege and opportunity to start a business if you simply learn to execute. And all the young people in your town have that opportunity as well, but you have to support them to get it done. So I want you to think with me for a minute what it means to be an entrepreneur. And if I can get all this to move along, we'll take a look at this. The first thing I want you to think about is this word called grit. It's a short, simple quality I can see a mile away. It's the trait that distinguishes the real entrepreneurial leader. It's what makes entrepreneurs successful. And the most famous entrepreneur who ever lived, Thomas Edison, is what he was referring to when he said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Grit is the quality that allows people to accomplish almost impossible goals, to actualize their dreams, and to create legacies. But because we're in Tennessee, I'll make a slight adjustment, and I'm going to use an acronym, not GRIT, but GRITS, okay, that makes us all truly remarkable. Let's look at the first letter of GRIT. The first element of GRIT is for the goal. Successful leaders and entrepreneurs typically have a well-articulated goal that can frame in a sentence or two. We call it the elevator speech if you're around entrepreneurs much. It's what you can say in 20 to 30 seconds. It really articulates what you're all about. I encourage you at the first coffee break to ask one another, what's your elevator speech for your business? Because no matter what your job, you should be able to frame it in a sentence, just what the hell you do. And if you can't, chances are you hadn't thought about it in a long time. Entrepreneurs, when they have goals, have real clarity of purpose, and they work toward a singular goal with a zest that's almost unimaginable. I was reminded of why this is important when I stumbled across a quote this week that said, if you don't design your own life's plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they've planned for you? Not much. The R in goal and grit is resilience. Great leaders and great entrepreneurs are able to deal with stress and uncertainty. They know how to develop enough mental hardness to persevere, and they take on the challenges, not run from them. For many of us entrepreneurial leaders, we were oftentimes the ones in the back of the room, or sometimes in the back of the bus. But we are here today because we were able to persevere. The next element of grit is this challenge and ability to innovate. The entrepreneurs I admire most have learned to think through possibilities and practicalities. They have a sharp distaste for the status quo and a drive to think beyond yesterday's solutions for tomorrow's problems. They embrace their curiosity. They are highly disruptive. They break things. They shake things up. They get things done. They build towns. They build fortunes. The last element of the traditional grit, before I add my spin of the S on the end, is trust. Entrepreneurs have learned to trust themselves and their gut But more importantly, they've learned to trust the people around them. This trust is rooted in a confident expectation of something, in optimism, and in something that sometimes I feel some of our communities have lost, this feeling of hope. The truly successful learn to trust others to help execute a vision and to turn their idea into something real. Entrepreneurs have to wear multiple hats. Particularly in the early days of their business, they simply do whatever it takes to help their business succeed. As a business grows, this unilateral decision-making style has to change. Plenty of businesses, ideas, and campaigns have failed because of a leader's inability to trust the people that they have put in place around them. Finally, for the S part of the grits, there's one trait I admire more than anything, and it's that entrepreneurs share their success. Or as we say in the entrepreneurial world, they pay it forward. This is one of our state's strongest assets. We are blessed with leaders, many in this room, who understand that doing well and doing good are not the same thing, and you're mindful of both. I know firsthand what it means to have someone pay it forward. As a poor kid from Mississippi, I had someone who reached out to me as a mentor and made all the difference in my life, which is why I do what I'm doing today for the state of Tennessee, giving other young entrepreneurs that same opportunity that was given to me. There's a beautiful story about something that happened several years ago at the Seattle Special Olympics that illustrates what this looks like to me more than any successful leader or philanthropist I've ever known. Many of you have probably heard it by now, but in case you haven't, I'd like to share it with you as I close. It happened in the 100-yard dash. There were 9 contestants, all of them so-called physically or mentally handicapped. At the sound of the gun, all 9 of them took off. I wouldn't call it exactly in a dash, but certainly with a relish to run the race and to finish and to win. But one little boy didn't get very far. He stumbled on the asphalt. He fell and started to cry. The other 8 kids heard him crying, and they did something most of us would find remarkable in a race. They all slowed down, turned around, and they ran back to check on him. The little boy got up, and the rest of the runners linked arms together, and they all 9 ran across the finish line at the same time. And when they did, the entire stadium stood up and cheered. People who were there still talk about that setting a decade later. And do you know why? It's because down deep in all of us, we know that what really matters in this life is more than just winning for ourselves. It's winning and helping others in our town and our community, even if it means slowing down just a little bit to give others the opportunity to participate in the big prize. I want to close with a part of a famous Benedictine blessing that speaks to me as an entrepreneur, to the spirit of leadership that I know exists in all of you, and to the heart of grit, and my hope is it will speak to you. May God bless us with discomfort at easy answers and half-truths, at superficial relationships, so that we may live deep in our hearts. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and the exploitation of people, so that you will work for justice, freedom, equality for all, and for peace. And the following part of the blessing I want you to pay particular attention to, because it's at the heart of entrepreneurial leaders, and it's the magical ingredient that helps our fellow Americans turn their dream into a reality. May God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you too can make a difference in this world, so that you go do what others claim can't be done. Thank you for being the dreamers and the entrepreneurial leaders that you are, for enriching the people's lives in this community, and for making our state one of the best places on the planet to live. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this 10th anniversary. God bless you.